Iran said that it will retaliate with great force if these crimes against humanity are carried out, because obviously targeting vital infrastructure that ordinary people use is a crime against humanity. But of course, as usual, there's no outcry in the West, because for the West, we live in the jungle.
All right, everyone. Here is what just happened as Donald Trump made a post on Truth Social, and suddenly it looked like a war had been stopped overnight, with claims of good and productive conversations, except Iran immediately responded by saying there were no conversations at all. Not even a single one, as Professor Marandi appeared on Piers Morgan's show explaining that this entire ceasefire narrative was created out of nowhere just an hour before Wall Street opened on Monday. And what makes it even more suspicious is how it conveniently lines up to expire right after markets close on Friday, so either this is some kind of unbelievable diplomatic move happening behind the scenes, or it raises serious questions about whether the situation is being used to influence financial markets and shape investor confidence, which makes this entire situation feel far more calculated than it appears on the surface.
Said a little earlier, Iran's parliament speaker is one of the senior Iranians reported to have been negotiating with the US through Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. He's now denied that any talks have taken place. Joining me from Iran with his verdict is Professor Mohammad Marandi from Tehran University. Professor Marandi, thank you for coming back on Uncensored. Donald Trump posted this morning. I'm pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week, I've instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Donald J. Trump. What is your response to that? Because all the official responses have been that there have been no discussions whatsoever. Is that your understanding?
Yes, there have not been any talks. The reason it is believed here that Trump made this statement was because he was worried about the markets, and he made the statement, I think, an hour before the markets opened on Monday. And of course, these 5 days would end after the markets close on Friday. I think he's also deeply concerned about the fact that Iran said that it will retaliate with great force if these crimes against humanity are carried out, because obviously targeting vital infrastructure that ordinary people use is a crime against humanity. But of course, as usual, there's no outcry in the West, because for the West, we live in the jungle.
Well, I mean, my response to that would be that I think that there's always been an understood red line that you don't go after each other's energy plants. And that line was crossed. I think it was crossed by Israel attacking one of the Iranian power plants. Iran responded in kind, attacking a refinery in Qatar and threatening to do more of that. And we now get to a place where Donald Trump threatened to blow up huge amounts of the Iranian power plants and now appears to have backed down from that, claiming to have had discussions. So this red line is an important one, isn't it? Because it's in nobody's interest in this conflict that Iranians' power plants get destroyed and they respond by taking out all of the neighboring Gulf states' power plants. That would be energy Armageddon.
So, Piers, do you condemn Donald Trump for threatening to take out Iran's critical infrastructure, its vital infrastructure that is targeting 92 million Iranians?
Yes.
Good. We finally agree on something.
I didn't agree with what Israel did in attacking the refinery. I wouldn't agree if America decided to attack more of the power plants. I think in particular you have an issue with the Gulf states, with the desalination plants, both in Iran, but also obviously in all the Gulf states, its neighboring states there, where having spent a lot of time in the Middle East, I know that if you took out the desalination plants, then the ability of the populations of these Gulf states to drink water.
What do you think? Was this real diplomacy or just a narrative created to control the markets? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I read every single one and I'll reply too.
Would very rapidly disappear. And you would potentially have millions of people unable to get to access water, which would be devastating. That's why it's always been a red line. But many red lines have been ripped up, it seems to me, in this war so far. How do you think this ends?
Well, all the red lines were, of course, crossed by the United States. An unprovoked war, murdering 168 little girls on day one in the first strike, murdering the leader, denying that they carried out the strike against the girls, pretending that it was the Iranians. In other words, pretending it was the victims. But of course, this is the 47-year-old history of Iran and the United States. The United States carries out aggression, and it always blames the victim, and the victim is somehow the problem. But I think the war will end in a strategic defeat for Trump. The Iranians are not going to let go until the facts on the ground change and Iran feels assured that this will never happen again. They're going to continue, because we already went through this once. We were negotiating, and Trump was secretly conspiring to attack Iran with Netanyahu 8-9 months ago. Then again, this time around, as we were negotiating, he did the same thing. So we're not going to allow him to walk away, rearm himself, prepare himself, and then launch another attack 6 months from now, a year from now, or 2 years from now.
Okay, but the argument, of course, would come back exactly the same to Iran. And many people will laugh, wryly at your description of Iran as any kind of victim, given its activities in supporting terrorist organizations all over the Middle East for decades, given the repression of its own people and the 47 years this regime has been intact. And you and I have debated that ad infinitum. You're never going to give an inch about any of it. I'm not going to waste more time trying to get you to do now. But in relation to a settlement, the Americans and the Israelis will want exactly the same from Iran. They will say the whole point of why they waged this attack. And look, I don't know what they know, but they say that there was legitimate evidence that Iran had been very rapidly rebuilding its nuclear capability, enriching the uranium to a point where it could create a nuclear bomb, and they could not allow that to happen. And that was against undertakings that Iran had given the international community. So they want the same thing from you that you have just asked for from them. So I ask simply, how does it get resolved?
No, there's no moral equivalence between an evil empire and its victims. There never was moral equivalence. Iran does not have terrorist organizations in the region. Hezbollah, which you call a terrorist organization, was created as a result of the Israeli regime's invasion of Lebanon and the occupation of the capital of the country. It was born to expel this regime that had occupied its country. And in Palestine, all of the resistance organizations were created, every single one were created as a result of occupation, ethnic cleansing, something that you know quite well, but you want to see otherwise. Or the resistance in Iraq or Afghanistan. You deny the people of these countries agency when a foreign power controls their fate, and then you want to blame Iran for everything that happens. Instead of invading countries and occupying countries and murdering people, the empire should just go home and have normal relations with each country, and then we wouldn't have this sort of conflict.
So do you concede? Do you concede quite happily then that the Iranian regime has supported, both with money and with arms, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas? Are you proud of that?
Yes, why not? They are liberation organizations. Without Hezbollah, the US regime, the Israeli regime, would still be occupying Lebanon. They would still be controlling Lebanon. The same is true in Palestine. By now, they would have ethnically cleansed the entire land of Palestine. Right now, as we speak, you know this as well as I, they're carrying out ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. And the West is silent. Not a single Western embassy protests. Why? Because all of the West believes unofficially the same thing that the US ambassador does in occupied Palestine. What does he believe? He believes that the Israeli regime has the most moral army in the world, like in Gaza with the genocide, and that if it takes over the entire region, that's fine. This is the unofficial policy of the United States and its European partners. The official policy is something else. So without a doubt, it is the Palestinians who are the victims. It is the Lebanese who are the victims. It is the Yemenis who are victims. And it is the Iraqis who've been victims. And now it's the Iranians who are victims.
Okay.
Your countries are all, you want to portray them as victims, but they go and kidnap presidents in Latin America. They strangle people in Cuba. They destroy Libya and allow slave markets to emerge. And somehow you're always this innocent bystander, and we are the bad guys.
Well, just to be clear, I've never used the word victim about either the United States or Israel. I don't believe them to be victims, but I understand their arguments for why they do what they do. I don't always agree with them, but I understand their arguments in the same way I listen to your arguments. My question for you, you asked me to condemn the notion of America attacking big power plants in Iran, and I happily did that. I think it would be a terrible mistake because I think Iran would immediately do the same thing to all the neighbouring Gulf states, and it would be, as I said, energy Armageddon. Would you condemn the terror attacks committed by 3,000 Hamas terrorists on October the 7th, for example, in return?
We went through that the first time I was on your show, and I said I would condemn them if I were to condemn the French resistance against the Nazis.
Okay, so you don't condemn it, just to be clear. You're equivocating, but you don't condemn it.
No.
Okay, so look, viewers can make their own minds up. If you can't condemn 3,000 people coming over a border and attacking innocent people who are at a music festival or in their kibbutz or wherever it may be, killing elderly people, young people, kidnapping a baby, kidnapping Holocaust survivors, if you can't find it in yourself to condemn the actions that day by Hamas, people will judge you accordingly. You can be as judgmental as you want against the United States and Israel, and some of the points you make I may agree with. But whereas I'm happy to condemn what would be a grotesque miscalculation if the Americans did attack your power plants, you can't even condemn the murder of 1,200 people and the kidnapping of another 250. And that says a lot about you, Professor Marandi.
No, actually, I think it says a lot about you because you know better than to say this, but you have to say this. That's how you keep your job.
Why? Who do you think I'm answerable to?
Oh, well, the resistance.
Who?
Again,
I own my own business. I own my own channel. I'm answerable to nobody.
The people
who am I answerable to?
The people who keep your show on air.
Who?
So,
well, hang on, who?
The people who keep your show on air.
Who do you think keeps me on air?
Oh, well, you know much better.
Well, spit it out. Say, give me a name.
You don't want me to respond to you. The people that own the people that own the media industry.
Who are you talking about? Who do you think puts me on air?
You know quite well who
Give
they
me a
are.
name.
It is. You don't want me to answer your question.
No, I do. Give me a name. Please give me a name.
You're afraid of my answers.
Give me a name.
Look, Piers. The first time you invited me, you allowed me to talk.
One name of somebody who controls me or tells me what to put on air.
For you. And ever since then, you prevent me from speaking.
Just give me a name.
Because whenever I speak, you have no answer.
Give me a name.
Go and look it up. If you don't know who owns the media outlet that your company works and provides services for, go and look it up.
Sorry, you don't seem to understand what my company is. My company is owned by me.
Yes. In any case, your company that is owned by you uses this format, this platform to speak to me and prevent me from speaking, and you talk over me.
When have I prevented you from speaking? I've had you on multiple times in the last few years.
You never let me talk.
I never prevent you from speaking. So you say that I'm under control by people, but you won't name them. Again, viewers can make their own calculations.
Look it up.
Give me a name.
Look them up. I'll send it to you after the show.
Look it up and I'll give you the name
of the people who you work with.
We're uncensored.
I'll look it up after the show and give you the name.
If you think I'm being censored, give me a name.
Why do you invite me if you're afraid of me talking?
Because you are a spokesman for the Iranian regime in Tehran, and therefore your opinions in the middle of a war in Iran against America and Israel
You don't let
are
me
pertinent
talk.
and relevant.
You're talking nonsense because I'm not a spokesman for anyone, but this is how you like to discredit me. I'm an academic and I teach at the University of Tehran, and I don't get paid for doing this work. I risk my life. Did you know that a verified account on Twitter has paid partnership, is gathering money, $1 million, in order to
Yeah, I
kidnap
saw that.
me?
I thought it was disgusting.
Yes. Do you condemn?
I condemn it, yeah.
Yeah. Do you condemn the owner of Twitter,
Elon Musk? Do you mean
condemn
Elon
him?
Musk? I think Elon
Yes.
Musk should not allow that to be done on his platform.
Do you
I saw
condemn
it.
it?
I think it's terrible. Yes.
Do you condemn it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I find it easy. I find it easy to condemn terrible things. You don't.
But people like you who dishonestly say I'm a spokesperson, even though if I were a spokesman, that would not legitimize what they do.
Right.
But by creating this aura that is dishonest, you create an environment where they can get away with these crimes.
Right. Well, just to
And
be
now
clear,
my entire
once
family,
again,
now all
once
of my
again,
loved ones,
once again,
all of my loved
if I may
ones
finish
are
my
deeply
point,
afraid
you asked
because
me,
of the things that you say and the actions that they take.
Fine. You've asked me several times. You've asked me.
Just let me answer.
If I may finish. You've asked me several times if I condemn various things, and I have immediately condemned them. And I've immediately condemned them. I asked you to condemn one thing, and it was the Hamas attacks of October the 7th, and you chose not to, and likened them to the French resistance. And people, like I say, as they do with all our interviews, they will judge you according to what you say.
You don't want me to answer the question.
You don't answer.
I'll answer. Hamas is a resistance organization.
Okay, you said that before.
Listen for a moment. The people who live in Gaza come from Palestine. They are refugees that were pushed into Gaza.
I asked you if you condemned it, and you said no. End. You answered the question.
Listen.
I've got to leave it there, Professor Marandi.
Listen.
You chose not to condemn it, and you chose not to tell me who you think controls my show. Viewers can make their own minds up about your answers. But you cannot say I don't give you a platform, because I regularly do, and we don't censor anything you say. But I condemn things when I think they're wrong. You don't.
No, you haven't let me speak.
You don't, because you don't think they're wrong. You think what Hamas did was perfectly justified. I've got to leave it there.
The head of Press TV has said that you can have a live debate with me in Iran on Press TV. A live debate, whenever you like. So come to Iran.
No, I'm not coming to Iran.
You can visit the country and see how awful it is.
You come to London and sit in this studio, and we'll do it. Done. Deal.
I've been to London.
I'm going to leave it there.
I've been to London.
I'll leave it there for now.
I've been to London. You've never been to Iran.
I appreciate you.
Iran, but
I appreciate you coming on uncensored. If you want to come and have the balls to fly over here and sit right here opposite me, you do it, and we'll air it. Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Let me be direct here, because what we just watched was not simply a debate, but a clear example of how narratives can be shaped and controlled, and Professor Marandi challenged it at every step as the discussion began with the claim posted on Truth Social, rather than through official diplomatic channels, suggesting that there were meaningful talks between Iran and the United States, while Iran itself denied any such communication, which creates a serious contradiction, because when a major announcement about a military pause is made and one side rejects it entirely, it raises concerns about credibility and intent, especially when the timing aligns closely with financial market activity, and Professor Marandi pointed this out, suggesting that the move appeared more connected to market stability than actual diplomacy. And as the conversation continued, the focus shifted to how questions are framed in these discussions, particularly when individuals from certain regions are repeatedly asked to condemn specific events, while similar scrutiny is not applied evenly across all parties, and this selective pressure reveals a noticeable imbalance in how accountability is presented and when. Marandi redirected the question by asking whether threats against millions of civilians should also be condemned. It highlighted how responses can vary depending on context and convenience in this broader pattern of inconsistency is what he continued to emphasize, while also bringing attention to the larger consequences of escalation, including the potential impact on essential infrastructure, such as power and water systems, which could affect millions of ordinary people rather than just governments or military forces. And as the discussion came to a close, both sides expressed interest in continuing the debate in a different setting, suggesting that what we saw was only the beginning of a much larger conversation, and overall the exchange underscored the importance of questioning narratives, examining timing, and understanding the wider implications of decisions made at the highest levels.